Chelsea need to part ways with Thomas Tuchel. There are no two ways about that now. Todd Boehly needs to give Thomas Tuchel the tit-tack. If you have started a Premier League campaign and you have already lost away at St Mary's, away at Elland Road, I'm afraid that you are on the precipice of a disaster. And unless you rectify it, unless you do something drastic, the season could be a write-off. It is shocking what is going on. The performances are so bad. Chelsea are currently in a battle to finish 7th. We are dreaming of Conference or Europa League football. That is what we are doing at the moment. We can completely forget about what's going on at the top of the Premier League table. What Manchester City get up to at the moment couldn't be more irrelevant to us. What Liverpool get up to at the moment couldn't be more irrelevant to us. We need to be preoccupied with what West Ham and Manchester United are doing and hope that we can find a bit of rhythm, find a bit of form, and potentially qualify for the Europa League, because this is shocking. Our form currently is worse than it was in the last 15 games under Frank Lampard. And everybody was saying, Frank Lampard needs to go, and Frank Lampard was never the right choice for the job, and Frank Lampard needed to be sacked immediately. It's exactly the same. The form today, if you look at Tuchel's last 15 games, Frank Lampard's last 15 games, there's a Rizzler paper between them. So I don't understand why it would be any different. The only reason I think it should be different is because Frank Lampard was learning on the job. Thomas Tuchel has been brought in as the expert. Thomas Tuchel has won a European Cup. And therefore, he needs to be held to a higher regard, a higher account. So what is going on at the moment is completely and utterly unacceptable, and Todd Boehly needs to make a decision now. This needs to happen now. This isn't reactive. This isn't knee-jerk. This goes back into last season. Chelsea's form last season was pitiful. People don't like to have that conversation, but it's true. Chelsea were shocking for large portions of last season. Chelsea won 8 games at home last season. 8. Everton, the Ev, who were shocking last year, who could easily have gone down last season. Everton, under Benitez, who was never suited to that club, and Frank Lampard, who everybody tells me isn't a good manager, Everton won more home games than Chelsea did under Tuchel. Is that okay? Of course it's not. It shouldn't have been okay then, and it's certainly not okay now. Chelsea conceded 4 goals at home in consecutive games to Arsenal and Brentford. Brentford coming to Stamford Bridge and scoring 4 goals. Then Arsenal, who didn't have a particularly good season last year, turning up at Stamford Bridge and having the time of their life. Totally and utterly unacceptable. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that all of this happened under Tuchel's watch. Tuchel was responsible for these results. Tuchel is responsible for the squad that we have assembled. If you analyse the personnel, it is terrible. It is terrible. And why? Because of decisions made by Tuchel. There is no centre forward at the club. Why? Because of decisions made by Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel chose rudely and incorrectly to get rid of Tammy Abraham. The way that he treated Tammy Abraham is unforgivable. What he did to Tammy Abraham that year, Chelsea got to an FA Cup final. Chelsea lost that cup final 1-0 to Leicester, so we didn't score. Do you know what we needed that day? We needed a goal scorer. And do you know who we had in our ranks? We had the club's top goal scorer, Tammy Abraham. The reason that Chelsea were in that FA Cup final was Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham scored the goals to get Chelsea to that cup final. And for one reason or another, Thomas Tuchel decided that he didn't even deserve a place on the bench. He wasn't in Chelsea's matchday squad. Where's the principle here? That is so out of order. That is completely disrespectful. And Chelsea ultimately lost that cup final, paid the price because we couldn't score a goal that day. Bad management. He got it wrong. Whatever you think of the situation with Romelu Lukaku, I hold Lukaku virtually entirely responsible for what happened at Chelsea. But Thomas Tuchel decided to offload Tammy Abraham to bring in Romelu Lukaku. It is a manager's responsibility to make sure that the centre-forward plays and scores. He didn't do that. Remember, there's always another side of a story. And Romelu Lukaku's story will be a very interesting one to hear. So that is an issue. The centre-forward position that is still not filled is an issue. Our central midfield. Why are we not desperately going for a central midfielder? Why were we not obviously trying to sign a central midfielder? We are so static in that midfield. We haven't signed anybody in that position since what, Kovacic? We desperately need somebody there. Why is Billy Gilmour not around this first team? Why was Ross Barkley around the first team and Billy Gilmour sent home from the States? Keep Ross Barkley there, who's been allowed to leave the club, and send Billy Gilmour home. Under Frank Lampard, Billy Gilmour was one of the most exciting young footballers in the world. He was one of the most exciting young prospects in world football. Since Tuchel's come in, you've barely heard of him. Cesar Azpilicueta. How have they given Cesar Azpilicueta a 2-year deal? He wasn't good enough to play for Chelsea 2 years ago. These are all Tuchel decisions. These are all decisions that Tuchel needs to be held account to. Constantly playing Kai Havertz. Constantly playing Edouard Mendy. Edouard Mendy and Cesar Azpilicueta were responsible for that defeat yesterday. Thomas Tuchel has allowed Cesar Azpilicueta to get a 2-year deal, which is absolute nonsense. He wasn't good enough to play at Stamford Bridge. He wasn't good enough to play Premier League football 2 years ago, and we've given him another 2 years. It's a terrible state of affairs, and a manager needs to take the responsibility when your right back is out, and that basically means you can't win a game of football. Your right back's injured, and you basically can't win a game of football. That's what it means. Azpilicueta for both goals at the epicentre of them. Maybe the first one was because he was scared to play the ball back to Mendy, because Mendy can't have the ball at his feet. He's not capable. But that brings us back to tactics. If you have a goalkeeper who is not capable of having the ball at his feet, don't instruct him to have the ball at his feet. Play to your players' strengths. Be pragmatic. Don't force Mendy to play out from the back when you can't play out from the back. As a result, Cesar Azpilicueta has panicked and knocked the ball out for a corner rather than laying it back to his goalkeeper. We can't defend corners. Harry Kane scored from a corner. Leeds scored from a corner. Yesterday against Southampton, scored from a corner. We cannot defend corners. What is going on at Cobham? What is going on through the week that we cannot defend from corners? It is completely and utterly unacceptable. And when we play West Ham United, if Mendy is in that starting lineup, it's sackable. Kepa Arrizabalaga, a player who I do not rate, now has to play for Chelsea. If Kai Havertz is anywhere near that starting lineup, it is sackable. I cannot understand it. What Armando Broja did in 2 minutes, it showed Kai Havertz up last night. Broja comes on, gets up between two defenders, bullies, hustles, harries, gets up between two defenders, wins Chelsea a corner almost immediately, did more than Kai Havertz did for the entire game. Kai Havertz is not good enough to lead the line for Chelsea. How can everybody know that apart from the manager? Kai Havertz as a false 9 is laughable. It's an oxymoron. Kai Havertz, false 9. It doesn't work. I mean, in terms of where he plays, I have absolutely no idea, by the way. I don't know where he should play, but I can tell you where he shouldn't play. Well, I can think of a lot of positions where he shouldn't play, but he certainly doesn't play as a centre-forward. The geezer averages 6 goals a season, and we are pinning our hopes on him to win Chelsea games. I mean, Raheem Sterling must be thinking, what on earth is going on? What on earth am I part of here? But, Kai Havertz is a pretender. And there are so many players that should be nowhere near Chelsea's next game. And Tuchel now needs to make some decisive, bold moves. Mendy, Azpilicueta, Jorginho, Havertz. If any of them start, it's a disgrace. But the bigger picture here is, I've been to enough Chelsea games. I've seen enough Chelsea teams to know that there is no way of salvaging this. These players have lost full faith in this manager. It's done. It's over. And we need to be decisive. We need to be on the front foot, and we need to now be searching for a replacement. Boehly now needs to do the right thing and give Thomas Tuchel the tic-tac, because what we saw last night was completely and utterly unacceptable, and the trajectory that we are on is only downwards. A nightmare, absolute nightmare scenario. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure you will. In a bit. Have a good day. Cheers.